In Bethlehem, a small town in ancient Israel, there lived a boy named David. The youngest of 8 children, David had a quiet but challenging job, tending his father's flock of sheep. Day and night, he watched over each animal, ensuring their safety from the constant dangers that lurked. It was more than just guarding. It was also about bravely facing the dangers of the wild. Despite his young age, David showed incredible dedication and responsibility. In the quiet of the pasture, he learned patience, loyalty, and keen observation, simple qualities that would become a solid foundation for the extraordinary journey that lay ahead. David was no ordinary shepherd. He faced dangers that few would dare to touch. Creatures such as lions and bears would appear, stalking the flock at night or when he was not paying attention. Instead of running away, David chose to confront them head-on. With a small stick and a simple slingshot, he repeatedly chased away those wild beasts, saving his flock from the clutches of death. Those life-and-death experiences not only trained his physical strength, but also forged his unshakable courage and confidence. No warrior trained David, but nature and challenges became his silent teachers, creating a steadfast spirit, steadfast in the face of all future difficulties. When not busy guarding his flock, David sought out the harp as a confidant. Music became a means for him to express his soul, a soul rich in emotion, always attached to nature and faith. The melodies David played were not simply sounds. They were the breath of heaven and earth, the harmony between man and creation. To the point that even the birds stopped flying to listen to his harp, as if nature could feel the purity in each melody. Music helped David maintain a balance between physical strength and spiritual life, preparing him for a rich and profound inner life that was rare in a young man on the wild steppe. One day, the prophet Samuel, who was guided by God, came to David's house. He did not come by chance or inspiration. He came because God had entrusted him with the mission of finding the future king of Israel. While everyone else thought of David's strong older brothers, Samuel was guided by God to choose the young boy himself. When Samuel anointed David's head, the ceremony marked a major turning point. From an unknown shepherd, David was chosen by God to take on a great destiny. The act was not only a confirmation of his future power, but also a demonstration of the omniscience of God, who does not look at appearances, but judges with the heart and soul. In the valley near where David lived, a fierce battle was brewing between the Israelites and their eternal enemies, the Philistines. The epicenter of terror was Goliath, a giant warrior, taller than any man, with extraordinary strength and heavy armor. Every day, he stood in the middle of the battle line, challenging the Israelites to send a man to fight him one-on-one, but no one dared to step forward. Fear crept into each soldier, paralyzed by the giant's overwhelming presence. Goliath was not just a physical opponent, but the embodiment of confusion, helplessness, and a test of faith for an entire nation at its most critical moment. David was sent by his father to bring food to his brothers who were fighting in the front. But he brought more than just bread and barley. He brought a different spirit. When he saw Goliath mocking the Israelites and blaspheming the name of God, David could not stand still. While the seasoned warriors fled, David, who had never been in battle, asked why no one stood up to defend the honor of the nation and God. Not out of a desire for glory, but out of a firm belief that if God had protected him from lions and bears, he would protect him from any force, no matter how great. When King Saul heard that David wanted to fight Goliath, he was shocked. Despite his doubts, Saul ordered the royal armor and weapons to be brought to David. But when he tried them on, David felt strange and constrained by the armor that did not belong to him, nor did he put his trust in it. David chose to return to what was familiar, the slingshot and 5 stream stones. This was not a symbol of unpreparedness, but a testament to his pure faith, and not influenced by form. He entered the battlefield not with physical strength, but with the courage that came from absolute faith that it was God who fought with him, not earthly weapons. In the valley of Elah, David approached Goliath under the giant's mocking gaze. Goliath laughed at him, calling David a child carrying a stick like a dog. But David did not falter. He declared that it was not with a sword, but in the name of God that he would defeat him. In an instant, David took a stone, placed it in his sling, and swung his arm. The stone flew like a well-aimed arrow, piercing Goliath's forehead. The giant fell, not just physically, but through the collapse of his arrogance and misguided belief in sheer strength. With a simple yet extraordinary act, David demonstrated that victory does not belong to the strongest, but to those who put their trust in the Almighty. David's victory did not end a battle. It began a new era. The boy who had once silently protected his flock became a living symbol of faith, courage, and loyalty. The Israelites praised his name, while the Philistines feared it for generations. Although it would be many years before David would officially ascend the throne, from that moment on, his fate was tied to the history of his people. David's story is not just an individual triumph, but a timeless testament that the smallest people, if lived with the greatest faith, can change the world.